Good afternoon. It is 3:06 p.m. Wednesday, May 22nd. And I hereby call to order the Budget Committee of the Memphis City Council. Mrs. Keefe, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Warren. Present. Chair Carlisle.
Present. Chair observes quorum. Dr. Warren, we have several items on today's agenda. We're going to begin with information technology. It looks like they've got CIP up first, which is fine. So we'll go CIP, then operating, and then we'll go to questions. Chief Keene, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Again, my name is Eric Keene, Chief Information Officer, City of Memphis. What's our address, Augustin? 150 Peabody Place. I'm still memorizing that, so thank you. I'm still kind of new. So let's jump to the next page.
We segued you in, you know, we started at World Headquarters, Peabody Place, eventually we're going to have it down in the basement.
We actually kind of like where we are. So, you know, I think that's kind of later in the deck, but
That's right.
I kind of throw that out there. If you don't mind, a couple FY24 project updates, you know, with the funding you gave us last year. Quite a lot of great progress in terms of application enhancements. You can see the enhancement to direct deposits on our Oracle system, a lot of enhancements to the 311 system, including chatbot implementation, some AI facilities, if you will. I will admit we need to do more work on the 311 system, and we're working on that right now. We have total focus on the technical structure of that system and how processes work and how we actually use the system in the field.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion we'll get into that, and we won't get too far into the weeds because this is a financial conversation versus ops. But I think in addition to the back of house is also working with the comms team. To this day, we're trying to take what I would call an enterprise ticket system and use it on a B2C basis, and the consumer doesn't understand how that system works. And so what ends up happening is that unless they get an individual email or call from a council member, as you've heard, and I'm sure Schuler has shown you, you know, well, I filled out this ticket, 35 people filled out a ticket for the same pothole. We closed 34 tickets, we keep one open, and it'll get fixed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then, of course, 311 then gets overloaded and inundated with the 34 people whose tickets were closed. And so we have to find a way on the consumer-facing front how to make that work better or communicate that more meaningfully, because I'm telling you, in the 5 years that I've been here, it is the rub that creates so much consternation because of just the understanding. And I would never expect us to get the everyday consumer to understand how our ticketing system works. So we just have got to figure that piece out. And I know someone with your background, that's a solid challenge that's in your wheelhouse.
Definitely, you know, and like most things that are not working perfectly, it's a combination of technical, if you will, processes and what people are actually doing. So just to guarantee that we have our full focus on that. And with every application, every process, every, you know, web-facing capability, we're trying to build, you know, robust, scalable IT infrastructure that you can count on. No problem. Again, bids and contracts digitization, so that's beyond just document them. We're trying to create full workflows that take the paper completely out. We replaced the 805 wireless access points, if you will, so we're on the most modern, you know, gear, if you will, for our firewalls and our access points, and that's really critical. We don't want to be vulnerable at all. We've implemented internet redundancy. You might remember some Comcast outages earlier in the year. We've now got an AT&T redundant line up and ready to go, so that should not ever be a problem again. Again, some more work on the network switches. In terms of security enhancements, we did a very successful penetration test that you probably did not know about, but this is when we invite a third party to come in and attack us. You know, attack our network, if you will, also attack via email, send phishing types of emails, and, you know, try to see where we're weak, if you will. And that turned out to be quite a great result. We got a very good report on that. We also completed just 2 weeks ago a great table talk exercise around ransomware. We included a lot of different agencies, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, FBI, fire, police, and brought in some external agencies to run through that. But I can tell you that at my experience at FedEx, we did have ransomware situations, cyberware situations, so being prepared technically and how you respond and how you communicate is a big deal. And right now, we're looking pretty good there. We also have implemented a number of different, cybersecurity, points of solutions, if you will. Anything you want to add to that, Augustine? That last point?
Yeah. We got a very good share.
Yeah. All right. My name is Augustine, Deputy Chief Information Officer, 150 Peabody. So with that, on the secure data protection, ransomware, it's cities and municipalities are a target for, external entities who want to get some data from us. So what we did was invest money in data protection so that we can protect and recover if and when any thing of that sort happens. So that's protecting the city's data from.
And the only thing I would like to add to that is that I think the city of Memphis, the IT department and other departments can be a leader in a lot of these areas, not just by ourselves, but partnering up. But I'm finding great collaboration that I guess I expected, but didn't expect so much. We've got some great progress on a shared data agreement, so, let's keep that going. Next page. And again, you see a lot of effort around kind of replacing obsolete equipment. We've also brought in our service desk from an external, type of source last year, thanks to your funding. You can see that the numbers have improved dramatically. I would say that the city of Memphis has what I would call, with a lot of experience, kind of a world-class service desk, and a lot of that applies to the fact that we've got a fairly modern IT infrastructure. Next. So here's the kind of the heart of it, our CIP budget request. And let me take 2 seconds to kind of talk about those 5 different things. So when you see, a budget ask of 500,000, whatever it may be, let me kind of tell you what that is. For desktop application infrastructure, that's just essential life cycle management. One thing that becomes a huge vulnerability and a real pain for people using it is just old equipment that doesn't connect. So that's a regular process with us. We're trying to replace some of this old stuff, not necessarily this microphone, but certainly some of the Polycom equipment. In cybersecurity, we're going to stand up a SOC, which is a strategic operations center, after hours. Right now, we don't have that, but most things when they happen on the cyber front happen when you least expect it. Also, we want to secure our data platform that we're building as a part of the crime recommendations and part of our general data warehouse for the city of Memphis. Operational enhancements include, around the network. And it's critical that we have a great data network for the city. And I can tell you that we have a good one. In fact, it's way more modern than I thought. It's way more fiber enabled than I thought. And of course, we've got the fiber project coming to Memphis with our anchor sites and all the residents. I mean, we will be one of the most connected and fastest broadband connected cities, certainly in North America. Implementation of modern systems. We're putting a lot of thought into .com, into our enterprise systems, a lot to your point about how citizens engage with us, whether it's through the 311 system or our .com interface. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for improvement there. And there's a lot of things out there now that don't require us to code or go out and hire special people. A lot of things you can build with tools and AI. And the last item there is the tech improvement cover line. And that simply is for fiber breaks, network problems. I mean, they are going to happen. So those are really the 5 big buckets for the CIP. Anything on there?
Yeah, let's hop over to the operating.
Operating budget. Org chart, this is pretty standard, but I do want to point out there's 2 legal levels. And one thing you might not know about your IT team, which I did not expect or know, is that you have a full stack IT team. So I can't tell you how important that is. I mean, the IT team owns it from the electricity to the service call. And having that kind of expertise on one team without having to rely on somebody to fly in is a big deal. Next page. Some of the strategic priorities that the mayor's laid out that are addressed by this budget, and I won't take a lot of time, but I do want to kind of hit a couple of things. We have a lot of great progress with the crime tech recommendations. We have fantastic collaboration with the fire department and the police department, along lines of how the organization should work in terms of establishing engineer positions into the police department to help us design solutions in a quicker way. A lot of great progress on the City of Memphis website, the data platform, the data sharing agreement. We made a lot of progress in the last month on camera network, and I would be happy to come in and talk about that in the future. But we're really laying out a scalable foundation to not only have cameras out there, but to be able to do something with the image and know if a camera is alive or not, or be able to grab some film from a location where we need it without having to send somebody out there or find that the thing's not working. We've also implemented a lot of advanced data analytics in the cybersecurity space around our data platform, if you will, and around our data warehouse. We're trying to leverage everything that is AI and embrace that to be a little bit quicker and to be able to produce content without having such a heavy reliance on humans, if you will. Everything we're doing for crime check, whether it's for the camera network or for the internet or cybersecurity, has a smart city destination in mind. So if we put a camera in an intersection right now to look at license plates, we also want to be able to use that camera in the future to see traffic flow or dangerous goods trucks or pedestrian flow. So I just want to stress again, I'm happy to come back and talk about some of those efforts, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the progress that we're making. Of course, we own all the enterprise applications for the city. Most of the applications that are under our control are not for IT. In fact, a small percentage of those are, but most of them are for the city employees, the 8,000 employees. So when you talk about Oracle, UKG, those are the enterprise applications that we've moved to over the last few years. You'll also see that these are the areas, if you will, where the cost has gone up. And I expect a question or two on that, but I'll get to that in a second. And then, of course, digital transformation initiatives around paperwork, City of Memphis website, anything, frankly, that we can automate, we're trying to automate. Expenditures, I guess 2 or 3 talking points here. In terms of personnel services, we're going from 7.1 to 7.5, 386K difference, if you will. Almost all of that is around trying to keep good people on the IT team and retain people, and I have to say from a lot of experience that, and like a lot of divisions, I don't mean to say this is just IT, but the buck stops with certain people and certain skills. And when you have an issue or you've got a treasury system problem or an Oracle problem, you need to be able to count on an expert to be able to do that. So we try to have a good balance of contractors and internal employees. Right now it's about 70-30, 70 internal, 30 external. I can tell you that that is a good number. The previous company I was at, it was just the reverse. We had 30% internal expertise, if you will, 70% became outsourced. And a lot of effort that was very painful and very slow started to bring those skills back in. But we will always need contractors. And technology changes very quickly. So where you need one skill, like in development this year, it could change next year. And so the ability to be able to bring on contractors for specific things or our most critical systems is something that, that we truly value and appreciate your support on. In terms of materials and supplies, that's the big jump from 18, if I can read this, to 20, if you will. So 2.9 difference, overall a difference of about 3.8 million. That number, if you will, our $28.4 million budget is about 3.2%, give or take, of the city's budget. Now, I know that doesn't compare directly to a commercial company, but 3.2% of revenue or budgets is generally a very good number. And for a logistics company, that would be super world-class. Just kind of throw that out there. Now, we're always looking to, improve that, but I think that's a number, that our residents and the council, I would hope, would feel comfortable with that number. The 3.2% of the budget. And again, of that increase of 13.5%, most of that is related to software, to SaaS software. SaaS stands for Software as a Service, so Oracle for HR, UKG for timekeeping across the city. That is software as a service that we buy, And I can tell you that at FedEx, when we started moving from our own systems, our own data center, our own computers, our own programmers to SaaS, people had kind of a heart attack because they could see that number going up, but they couldn't see what was buried in all the legacy. That he couldn't pull that out. So, I think the move to SaaS is where we need to go, but it does represent the biggest chunk of the increase that we're asking for. Program comparative spending. I think, again, I've kind of stated this in different ways, but really two areas. It's software, enterprise software, if you will, and what we want to do for our team, for our people that are really creating those differences. Any questions? Expenditure changes year over year. I can go into these, but I think I've kind of.
No, I think you touched on it in the prior slide.
Okay. Division detail. We have, as I mentioned, a team of 109 people, 76 people internal and 33 contractors. So again, I really want to stress that ratio of 70% internal, 30% contractors. I think that's a good mix, if you will. We do have some vacant positions, all in action, all in motion. As you can see, an offer pending, interviewing 2, reposting because we didn't find candidates for 3, and 1 we had resigned recently for moving to a different city. We did decrease the authorized complement by 4 because we abolished, if you will, or eliminated 1 group that was simply not needed for what they did. Materials and supplies gives you the 100% breakdown there. And again, kind of stressing for the 4th time, software, if you will, professional services, which we rely on. And then you see communication. So these are all very typical kind of buckets for an IT team. I think typical percentages for a yearly increase in that area. No questions, I'll keep moving. Account detail for professional services. These are the vendors that we work with. We manage them very closely. I actually think we're pretty stringent in terms of what we require. I also think that we're helping a few of the vendors get better at what they do in terms of supplying services for the city of Memphis or providing technical, types of help. I won't mention names, but a lot of these vendors are working on our most important efforts, and and we have to be equally skilled at what we do, and we're putting a lot of effort into being good partners. Account lease, as I mentioned earlier, we're down at 150 Peabody Place. I don't know if there's any questions about the lease, but I can tell you that this is a good location for us. And for an IT team that's full stack, that handles, phones and computers and servers and racks, having a shipping dock and secured storage, first floor, it sounds kind of foundational, and it is, but it's a very effective location for us. And then last page, showing our utilization of MWBE. I think we show a fairly good number on a relatively small, size of 40%. So we try to improve that. And again, we try to work closely with our contractors, our partners to be better.
Great, thank you so much. So yes, on all things operational, what I would say is I would love to get you back after budget season and kind of get your 6 to 8 month look back. This is my assessment. I mean, I know you touched on that a lot already, but maybe a more in-depth dive. We talked a little bit about 311 and just some of the other things, some of the other initiatives that we're doing. I mean, I'll give the last administration credit, or at least Chief McGowan. One of his big things is bringing the city of Memphis as an entity into the 21st century, right? Getting Oracle put in place, so a lot has gone into that, and that was one of the better explanations, I think, for me. It's even in our private sector world, when our IT team comes to me, I just kind of glaze over. I know that it's important. I don't really know what they're saying to me, but I know that we need to pay for it and trust. But I appreciate kind of how you walked us through and the explanations and how that stacks up to the private sector. And I do think it's important. You mentioned it earlier. I'm glad to hear that you think we're at a good ratio. One of my concerns, when we look at the budget every single year since I've gotten here, are professional services, what I would call typical professional services, IT, finance, engineering, law. I think that is one of the toughest areas for us to compete in the private sector, and it's always just going to be a battle. It's just going to end up being a wage and benefits war, and we're very fortunate to have everybody here that is willing to sometimes take a different compensation package because they believe in the work that they're doing for the city, and that's not ever lost on me. So to the whole team, thank you. With that being said, I've got Councilman Warren and Councilwoman Green in the queue. Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions. On our website, as far as its ease of access for people who are out in the community using websites, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like we've maxed and it's as good as it needs to be, or what are our problems that you see that we need to be addressing? That's one. And the other is, and I guess this is just a general question, are we going to continue to pay an increasing percentage of your budget for all these software packages that we're buying every year? And that's just going to keep going up and with no end in sight.
First question, our City of Memphis website, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would give it a 4.7. There's some good content there, not necessarily arranged perfectly.
Yeah, I think content's good.
Not necessarily user-friendly, certainly not mobile-friendly, certainly not accessing all the data we intend to share and put into a data platform, if you will. We're not leveraging AI tools that are kind of out of the box for a lot of different companies. I mean, we had Dell in just a few weeks ago, and they came in. I said, you've got 30 minutes. You can't do any coding, but you can see our website and scan it and show me what you can do with AI. And they had a realistic, artificial person answering questions about 311 and all that. And I'm not saying that's where we want to go, but that's where we need to lean towards. So a lot of that is getting the fundamentals right. We brought the website hosting internally. We hired a website developer internally about a month and a half ago. I speak to him about every single day. He's standing up right next to me, working well with Penelope's group. But I do think we should get some more input on the design and flow, especially from our residents. But
so we're actually actively working on fixing that website, making it more user friendly.
We definitely are.
Good.
That's a whole new day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, and thank you for that. And I guess just in general, as the business goes, we should expect to see increasing percentages on software and purchases in the future as part of your department.
Probably. Most of these companies, Oracle, UKG, they typically have about an 8 to 10% increase. I think we can negotiate maybe a little bit better, but I also think we could probably tell the story better of why SaaS is a good fit and what it's displacing in terms of cost. So, I've tried to look up, what did it cost to run X 5 years ago versus X today? I'm convinced it's lower. I just don't have those numbers. But typically, yes, those companies, that's how they survive, is through licenses.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great questions. Thank you, Dr. Warren. Councilwoman Green.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that you have mentioned the staffing and the contract staffing in particular. It does make me question why we shouldn't increase the complement to have them be Memphis employees. Again, I know staffing companies are in the business for profit. And so we are paying that profit to the business instead of paying the employees. And I hear Chairman Carlisle's, remarks about we can't compete with the private sector. We can't if we keep paying the staffing industries instead of paying the employees. So I'll just continue to make that point. I don't know all of these on your professional services that are actual staffing agencies. At least 2 of them are listed out, and they total over $1.2 million. So that is continues to be troublesome to me, and I would like to see us just take our employees in-house and teach them the skills and pay them their worth, and make Memphis government a place where people want to work so that we do compete with the private sector. I did have one question, and this is in the budget book, and it is maybe more of a question for the administration because I do know how new you are. But in FY23, our actuals on personnel services were 2.674 million, and now we're sitting at 4.6. And so this is on page 130 of the budget book that I was given. So that's a jump, you know. That's what from what we actually did in FY23 to what's being proposed in 25. And what I heard today was they've actually eliminated 4 positions. So I'm wondering if that is all these contract positions. And again, as we've discussed, I believe it was Councilman Spinoza or maybe Chairman Smiley, you know, we asked, were these positions that were created during ARPA? Because again, it just seems like a big jump in personnel services in particular. And I know we're using contractors, so we don't have our real complement listed. So if there's anything you can help, like, explain that.
Yes, ma'am. I'm pretty sure that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
It's so bulky. We've got to get this figured out.
Yes, ma'am. Walter Person, interim CFO. Deputy Augustine was here as well, but to put it shortly, during that time frame, we actually migrated from an almost all contractor-based process to a lot of in-house personnel. So they migrated to, I think, basically converting a lot of contractors to in-house. So that accounted for that jump. And I believe that Chief Keene has pointed out that they plan to right-size their salaries to retain those personnel going into FY25's proposed budget. But did you want to speak to that a little bit more, sir?
Yes. So we migrated 30 contractors that we could to city employees. The rest that we really not, yes, not.
And that's really helpful to have that context. And I guess my next question is, what does it take to migrate the remaining 30 contractors into city employees? Like, what is it that we're missing here on the city? And it may be money, it may be they're just, we need flexibility to have different trained people all the time. I'm not sure why we can't train them. Our training budget is, you know, we have seminars and training and education budget too. So just, can you explain to me why we can't make them city employees?
Yeah, Chief Keene, do you want to, if in the mic, do you want to touch on the point you made earlier about that dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've made first of all, I agree with you. Excuse me, I agree with you in spirit. I mean, my first preference by far is a city employee. You know, and I know we talk about that all the time. And as you've seen, we made a lot of progress in the last 4 or 5 months, if you will. That said, I'll take the last question. You know, that increase in software license costs. After our third revision on the budget, we have about $60,000 left for training. So, you know, there's not a lot of money to send somebody to Oracle, you know, training, if you will. So I'm not trying to say, give me millions of dollars, but maybe I can do a better job of showing you where we put the most skilled people on the team and where contracting starts to make sense. And you can see kind of a pattern of us going from what was probably 60% employees to now 70. Maybe we can increase that a little bit, but we definitely need the freedom, you know, to bring in a contractor when we need them. But I'm with you in spirit. But in reality, that's pretty tough to do.
But to the councilwoman's point, practically, what you're saying is, I think it's 2 things. Today, at present, if you can expound on the point that you made, which is, I think what she's really asking, which is you have specialty software that requires a special set of outside skills that we don't have a full complement for today. I think is one point. And then the second point is if you want to go to the councilwoman's point, we would have to expand not only the complement, because not everybody may find a place once they go through these, but these, you know, Argus is something we use in commercial real estate. You have to do the same thing. You have to go get trained on it, right? So what you're saying is that the training budget, the complement would have to expand and the training budget would have to expand, and we'd have to even find those people. So you have those 3 things. Is that a fair, I think that's kind of earlier what you were touching on.
Yes, and you know, and you want to design the org so that you have the balance. You know, you have the flexibility and you have the backup, if you will, but I don't disagree with anything that you've suggested at all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Warren.
I guess back to the training situation, I've heard from employees that one of the things that they feel weak about is they feel they're the slow horse, that they haven't been trained up to the potential of the software. And I guess, tell us what we can do that will help you figure out which employees those are and how to get them trained.
Okay.
It's just a matter of money, Jeff. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you and everything you're doing. I will say this for newer members and even members that were here last term, IT, and I'm sorry, everybody, IT had some ups and downs. We had some people in and out. It was the work that they were able to accomplish with the turbulence that was going on in that division is impressive in and of itself. And so I'm really happy that you've taken it by the reins because it's something that's so important. So thank you. Look forward to catching up back in a committee in July and talking about some of the things you're working on more in depth operationally. But appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Get more money for training.
Yes, it is. That's why when you... All right, everyone. We are going to get started with Memphis Parks. Thank you to Director Walker and team for being here. Director Walker, whenever you are ready, the floor is yours. If we get your name and title and take it away.
Sure. Nick Walker, Parks Director, City of Memphis, 2599 Avery.
Marsha Allen, Deputy Director, Memphis Parks, 2599 Avery, and we're going to present our request for the 2025 operating budget.
So real quickly, on the second page, you'll see there's 11 legal levels in Memphis Parks. As director, I currently oversee all the managed agreements, so Brooks Zoo, Botanic Gardens, Sports Centers, which is the stadium, and museums. Normally, there is an operations deputy director and a back of the house director, or sorry, operations and programming. Marsha's serving in both roles, but we are in the process of hiring a second deputy right now.
So actually what our budget will focus on today, just kind of talking about our building capacity for parks, reimagining and strengthening our park ranger program, looking at some additional youth programming, increasing our number of lifeguards, of course, more youth programming related to exercise programs and classes that we have. Also converting some of our traditional game rooms into interactive game rooms for youth. So we definitely want to focus on that today. And realigning our park operations team just to create capacity and decrease our cut cycle. So right now we're currently funded for a 17-day cut cycle, and no one in this room would actually cut their grass every 17 days. So a goal of ours is to get down to a 14-day cut cycle.
I'm gonna tell you, some of us will get cut our own grass.
Okay, and so another thing that we really want to focus on is knowing who is coming in and out of our community centers and what they actually use our community centers for. So investing more in our member management model, so the membership model, just so we can better forecast what we spend money on and what type of programming we have in each facility.
Can you, I'm sorry, I usually wouldn't typically do that. Because we have some newer members, do you want to talk? I think that that's something that shouldn't be glossed over.
Sure.
But the membership initiative and where you started 12 months ago and where you are today is night and day, and it's been great.
Yeah, so, and I've got one on my keychain, sadly, along with a couple of other places. But we have, well, I do, because we don't have a 5 a.m. pool. We're working on it. Yeah, there you go. So he has the full-size one. I've got the keychain one. Actually, all of you should have one.
Should have one.
Exactly. But in any event, it's great. I'm actually using it tomorrow to sign my daughter back up for the second session of swim lessons. All of our centers, the 7 regional sites right now currently all have a scan-in where you go in, similar to any private health facility, scan your card, say what you're there for, go to that program. If you're signing up for summer camp, if you're doing any of our after school, if you're doing the spring break camp or the fall break camp, and really any of our athletics, you have to register through it. So we have detailed information instead of the old paper-based sign-up that we had. The next phase, and this is really the big one, is, and several council members know this, because to rent one of our community centers right now, you go over to Western Union, the Kroger, or the bank, and you get a money order. And you come in and you pay your deposit, and then when it's time for you to do your rental, you come in with another money order and pay for your rental, and then if everything went well and you get your deposit back, we submit a check request, which means you have to have a W-9 with the city in order to do this. And
that just sounds like government.
It does sound like government. Starting July 1, you'll be able to use a credit or debit card. So,
but just to, and again, not to belabor the point, but it was until a year ago, paper signups, we didn't track it as well. We didn't have the database. We couldn't tell usage. We couldn't reconcile usage when people were using it. So now Nick has all this information instead of anecdotal evidence from council members getting feedback and vice versa from parks. And so as we're making CIP decisions and all of this great stuff about programming, like we can feel comfortable as decision makers with Nick and his team that we're making well-founded, data-driven decisions. And if something's working, we can expand it. If something's not working, we can collapse it. And so I'm really, really excited about having all of that user data and getting going on it, especially with all the conversations over the last 5 years that have gone down here. And I know Carol's here, and I'm sure that they're excited about that, you know, how it's working across the city and things that they can do downtown. So there's a lot of synergy around it, and I'm super excited. So congratulations on getting that up off the ground.
Thank you. With no small debt of gratitude to our former deputy director, who is now over at the evil organization. No, I'm gonna be. I didn't say their name, so it doesn't count. So on expenditures. So again, I'm going to jump to 7 on this just because I feel like it's a good summation of this. What you should be aware of, the big drivers here are going to be the full-time salaries, obviously because of an increase in ISLs. When you see that proposed ISL, you sort of see the offset because last year we added a significant number of labor to our staff. But because this year we're asking for less, that's why it shows a decrease on the proposed ISL. Those convert over to full-time salaries. And so that's where you see a big increase, plus the proposed increase in costs associated with a salary increase.
Did everybody catch that?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right.
Moving further down, utilities are a big one. Sewer fees are a big one. Between those two, it's $1.1 million that's added to our budget. Then what you'll see is the other two big things that are going on are the miscellaneous professional services, miscellaneous services and charges, and materials and supplies. The big decrease of that is all due to the transfer of Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. You're going to see an offset on the revenue side, because I'm going to be honest with you, it's good on this side. The lost food and beverage, the lost rental, the lost, naming rights, all that goes with the stadium means it's pretty much a wash. Moving further down, the other big increases that you'll see have to do with the reopening of Audubon and Pine Hill golf courses. Because although they're going to bring in money, and you'll see that on the back end, they're also going to cost money and increase labor, increase materials and supplies, and increased inventory. And then the last thing on here is the proposal for $2.5 million, which at the end, I'll kind of talk y'all through the details of that. And again, I'm happy to show the full document because similar to an appropriation statement, it's a lot of lines that make up that 2.5, but I'll hit it from a legal level perspective. And then likewise on the revenue side. We'll jump over to 10 on this one. And then again, the big drivers here are greens fees, golf cart fees, pro shop fees. One that I want to note, even though it's not a huge amount of money, is ball field permits. Bringing online all of the facilities that were built as a part of Accelerate Memphis and as a part of the resiliency grant means that we have more permittable fields, which is of benefit to groups like all of the schools in the city. Most of the private schools don't have enough athletic facilities that they don't need to use some of ours. Shelby County Schools does use a large portion of our fields to supplement the fields that they have. Likewise, recreational play happens on there. So we're forecasting an increase of about $30,000 in ball field permits. Now, bottom line numbers. If you add up the decreased revenue, it is about $4.6 million in decreased revenue associated with the transfer of the stadium. It is a decrease of $4.8 million in expenses. That's going to be a little bit wonky, I'm going to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, I think it's going to cost us more to take care of the fairgrounds. We just won't know that 100% for sure until we start operating it independent of the stadium. They've always been a combined beast, so we've never operated just the fairgrounds by themselves. And then I'll kick it back over to Marcia.
All right, and so just talking about our complement and our authorized complement for personnel, we have a total of 258 full-timers and about as many part-timers. And if you look, most of our full-time staff reside in park operations and centers, which they take care of our park operations, of course, take care of our over 5,000 acres of land, and centers, that staff run all of our community and senior centers. So that's where you would see the largest of our complement. And on the next page, 14, if you look at our authorized complement, again, we have 258 positions. On this report, it shows 38 vacancies. As of 2 days ago, we had 20 of those 38 filled or offers out. 16 are posted online, and then there are just 2 vacant positions that we have. And so that is really what we have for our authorized complement.
So what's going to happen with Mosh now and those employees?
So with
Yeah.
so with
Get out of the way,
Mosh,
Nick.
I know, right? Like I should have talked about this on this slide.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, it's either one's fine, but yeah, what's going to happen?
So right now we're absorbing the Mosh employees that are city, some of those employees back over to the city side. There are some that have opted to work for MMI.
Okay.
And so they will
That's
go
right,
over
MMI.
on that side. And we're trying to get away from having city employees, or we are moving away from having city employees report to a managed partner.
Okay, I'm going to put a pin in that for now so we can get through the presentation, but know that I'm coming right back at the end.
Sure. Yeah, and we're happy to talk about it in detail. Okay, so and then lastly on this side, the major M&S expenses. We are interesting in that only about 40% of our budget goes towards personnel, and that's a large driver of that is utilities. If you look here, 26% goes to utilities, 7.7% goes towards sewer. So ostensibly, 1/3 of our M&S expenses are utilities or sewer. The other big driver on this is miscellaneous professional services, which is why the next slide. This one's pretty straightforward here. It really boils down to the fees associated with contracting out cutting and maintenance of parks that are on the outskirts of the city or are community centers themselves. So what we decided was the level of care and maintenance required doing the curb appeal of community centers, it makes more sense hiring a landscape contractor so that we can focus on the big equipment in parks to take care of multiple acre sites. Additionally, there are some parks, the drive time and the fuel expenses associated with going to those, about 6 or 7 years ago, we started contracting those out because it is more cost effective. That totals out to about $958,000. The bulk of this, other than, you go down to the bottom, and this is the one that drives everybody nuts, because other is $1.8 million, and I get it. But I will tell you that 255 different vendors make up that other. They're any contract of less than $100,000 a year, and we are happy to share that full list with you. It is. Bounce houses, chemical suppliers, sand for the golf courses. There's a ton of them, DJs, etc. That being said, $2.8 million of our miscellaneous professional services is management agreements, which is numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Botanic Gardens, Overton Park Conservancy, and Woodruff Fontaine. The only things outside of that are Johnson Control, who we use to do security and burglar, or fire and burglar alarms, Waste Management, who does our trash pickup for the community centers, and then youth programming, which again is we bulk together some of that because that's a lot of the bounce houses and stuff like that.
Is the partnership booked in executive or is
it is? It's booked in executive.
Why?
That's a great question. There's lots of weirdness about that agreement, but
no, but I mean, like at the end of the day, it's the agreement has no intent on the funding source. That's an accounting and operation.
It's listed under grants and agencies with executive, and that predates me.
Okay. It's funny to me that we have all these other management fees here for exactly the same purpose, but this one yet is booked over here.
Because the management agreement, that I am the person who oversees the management agreement with MRPP. So yeah, I'm with you. And don't get me wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, truthfully, when we talk about national organizations and things like that, that coming from parks would show as a more significant parks budget. And so that would help us with like Trust for Public Lands and groups like that. So it's not a bad conversation to have.
Yeah, well, I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, and we'll get to the partnerships, and they're quasi-autonomous, but the reality is that this is just, to your point, this is less about anything other than an accounting function. And the reality is, to your point, the accounting function is to our benefit to move it into the parks budget. It's another $3 or $4 million that we can demonstrate. That's not an executive function. It is solely, I mean, they exist but to manage parks and other assets, but ultimately it should be booked there. It would look better. Yeah. Anyway, it's like an accounting thing. I don't know why I'm going off on this tangent.
So to kind of round up our presentation, our MWBE spend, our certified spend is over 51%, and if you count in our non-certified with our certified, we're at 52%. So we proudly boast that. And a lot of it is from just those multiple vendors that we have and we use. So just knowing that we're doing MWBE spend to that magnitude is amazing.
And that is our operating budget presentation.
All right, let's...
Oh, actually, no, sorry. Let me run real quickly through what makes up the $2.5 million.
Which 2.5?
The youth programming.
Okay. Yeah. That's
And
probably
I'm
a
just
good
going to
idea.
hit it at a very high level. We're setting aside about $225,000.
I'm sorry, hold on. Hey, council members, this one I think is important if you don't mind it, because everybody's been asking about the youth programming coming up. So he's going over $2.5 million in the youth programming that they got and how they're gonna spend it.
So right off, sure. It's proposed in the budget.
Yeah.
It's proposed in the budget. Yeah, no. Yes. So right off the bat is going to be the most nebulous thing, but honestly, I learned this one the hard way. We're setting aside $225,000 as like earmarked for initiatives that we don't know of yet. And that's I learned that when we restarted Family Fun Fridays. They said, hey, do it, and there was no money to do it, and we figured out a way to make it happen. I don't want to do that again. $100,000 for community engagement. And the reason for this is to specifically target community engagement with youth. Start things like youth advisory councils. Work to find meaningful partnerships with youth organizations that are funded so that you can do it in a way in which you are not just hosting them, you're actually participating in that programming. Park rangers, taking the staff that we have, that again, a large portion of what they're supposed to be doing is interpretive, having them work on nature-based educational programming with young people so that when they're working with us, we can expose them to a lot of the parks that we're dealing with, some of the educational side of those things. Raymond Skinner Center, $50,000 for Raymond Skinner Center, because a decent percentage of our population are young people who are developmentally disabled, and making sure that we can expand the type of programming that we do in Skinner to make sure that we don't leave that population out. $800,000 for community and regional centers. And I will tell you that honestly, the bulk of this will go toward what we've talked about in terms of converting those rooms in the community centers from foosball and ping pong to more video game environments, which serves two purposes. One, it meets the needs of kids today. Kids today want to play on electronic devices. But two, sure. The number is $800,000, spread among with basically $32,000 per center.
And we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of this breakdown.
Yeah. And again, the second reason for it is that it can be used if leveraged correctly to incentivize behavior. If we can say you get an hour in the game room for an hour of working on homework and structured programming, that's a great use. Moving further down. The golf. And one of the things I'm really excited about on this front is one of the things that we are talking about is continuing to push our partnership with the First Tee, expanding the number of clinics and available things that we can do in the community. But the other is making a dedicated girls golfing program. I mean, it's something that we heard about in conversations, and I think that's something we really need to push for. Yep, it is, which we'll talk about in the CIP budget. Then on the aquatic side, dedicating $75,000 to provide more opportunities for youth in the aquatic space, including focusing on swim lessons for youth with disabilities, creating a citywide youth swim team. Right now, there are plenty of private clubs. There are plenty of private swim teams. Making sure that we have a City of Memphis swim team, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah, I think you'll find a lot of support from roads and those that have kind of quasi, but they'll help support that.
And then on athletics, again, we've talked about the Flag Adult Football League, the Young Adult Flag Football League, which again, we're targeting 16 to 24 on that. The Midnight Basketball, expanding our Junior Grizzlies Youth Basketball League. Last year, we had a 400% increase in our participation in the Youth Basketball League by choosing as the city to subsidize participation in the Junior Grizzlies. Again, for a cost lower than what parents pay to have their kids participate in it at one of the private clubs, we were able to sponsor kids to participate in it through Memphis Parks for free. This would allow us to expand that and include more kids. And then Play Your Park, another $500,000. I can go through all again. I'll send you the full list, but we just want to expand.
Yeah, I think that'd be more helpful because it's kind of hard to follow. But I think we get the gist of what your goal is, and we'll come back and wrap up because I know that this bucket of money will probably be something that gets talked about.
Sure. And again, we'll send you the full list.
Thank you, Nick.
Separately. And
Perfect.
Then,
let's just go ahead and get into CIP. And guys, what I've asked Director Walker to do, because they're CIP intensive, kind of like more so because council members have specific projects in their district that they're interested in, and you are certainly entitled and should ask about those if you want. But what I've asked him to do is hit high-level parks, higher-level division stuff. And if you would like to ask a question about a specific project, now would be a good time. If you want to wait and have an offline conversation and or bring it back and wrap up, that would be fine too. But I just asked him to kind of hit the things that they're wrapping up and things that they're getting up off the ground that they're excited about, and then anything of special note. All right. Thank you, Director Warren.
Okay, so I'm going to run through them real quickly. The improvements cover line, again, there's a detailed list that I believe is shared with you. If not, we're happy to share it with you. It is our proposal because every year, if an air conditioner goes out and general services break fix line runs out, that gets prioritized. It's actually happening right now. The second item that you'll see on there is the new Lester Community Center. This is the second half of construction and FF&E on that building, which anybody that's driven down Tillman, as you can see, we're about to start putting up steel. That thing's going to come together pretty quickly. The goal is to have folks in there for next summer camp. And then Audubon Golf Course Clubhouse. We're in the process right now of putting a temporary clubhouse on the side of Cherry. Yeah, it's going to be a single wide trailer on the side of Cherry. But this money is earmarked for A&E to go toward the construction of a new Audubon Clubhouse. And again, we're happy to get into the details on that later, but that's an FY26 and 27 initiative. Moving down, the $1 million for the Brooks Museum as a part of the city's contribution to the new Brooks Museum. And then really the two other items that are of note, because the tennis major maintenance and is going to be bumped until the next year. Zoo major maintenance and the Lichterman major maintenance are, the zoo is an every year thing. That is the city's contribution towards deferred maintenance at the zoo. Lichterman is part of essentially a 5-year process to deal with some of the issues going on over there. Douglas Splash Pad. We received some funding, grant funding for the Douglas Splash Pad that was not sufficient for us to do the project. We began the project under Accelerate Memphis, but cost escalation led us to a point where now 1.2, we have the equipment ordered. It is sitting over in the Coliseum, and I wish that was a joke, but that is the truth. The equipment to build the splash pad at Douglas is sitting over in the Coliseum. The $1.2 million is the hard construction costs and site furnishings to finish out the Douglas Splash Pad. It'll be the largest one we have, but anyone that's familiar with Douglas Park, it's a 40-acre park. It's a massive site, and so this makes sense. And then lastly is the final $500,000 to go toward the capital campaign at the Botanic Gardens. There was $500,000 in FY24, $500,000 in FY25 to go toward their educational greenhouse. Yeah. All right. And that is the high level quick of our FY25 CIP budget proposal.
Thank you, Director Walker. Colleagues, as a preface, I will also add, if you have, the cover line is one of the most important line items on an annual basis for you. Director Walker is very receptive. I hope I'm not saying it too late, Nick. If I am, I apologize. But that is in the cover line in which they will go and do repairs or small projects in parks. And so if you have things that you feel like are priorities in your districts, please reach out to Director Walker and go through that and his team. It could be, I'm just trying to think of things we've done the year. Some were like water fountain fixes and resurfacing a part of the playground. So please take the time when we go through next week and just shoot him an email and say, hey, these are the things that are important to me in my district. And he's usually very, very good about kind of trying to work with members and the overall scope of what has to happen with his team. But do that. Take advantage of that, please. Dr. Warren.
Just a couple questions. On the stadium, that we sold to University of Memphis. Donated. Discharged, gave away. It looks like we're about $400,000 to the good on that based on the numbers you put there. Are we $400,000 in the hole? And as far as parking and stuff, At every event that occurs at the stadium, do they get the money from parking? Is that how it works?
So maybe on the first question, and no, we collect the revenue for
So
parking
do we collect the revenue for parking during their games?
during every activity.
So every activity, we're in charge of parking and security for the parking garage,
Well,
or for the parking lot.
The parking lot, yes, sir.
Okay, and how are we securing anything we have in the Coliseum? We're storing something in there. How's that
Yeah,
being secured?
so I mean, I joke about that. We really don't keep things that you could walk off with in there. And it is also used by our park operations and by the stadium crew. So there's regular traffic in and out of there. It's locked up. There's like a little mini halo around the service entrances on the other side. The other sides have roll down doors. It's a secure facility. It's just not ideal.
I've been in the secure facility and seen all the lights that have been pushed down the.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's not great.
Yeah, it's not really secure. All right. The other thing is we're looking at this Brooks $2 million. Is that $2 million a year that we're paying, and are we paying it for a number of years, or is this our last payment for the Brooks?
I think this is one of two.
Okay, and what's the total amount of money that we've put in for the new Brooks as a?
I'll answer that question. It's well over $30 million. You had to tear down a fire station, tear down a garage, contribute the land, and build a new fire station just to start the project.
So I think it would be important for us to, have that at some point so we know what that is, so what we've given as a city. And I think it may be important for people who are new to understand what we do as far as how we contribute to the zoo and the botanical gardens and all of these other parts that are in parks that are autonomous or semi-autonomous, what those operating agreements mean. If you could just give a brief description of why we do that and how that works.
Sure. So essentially, the Memphis Parks has management agreements with the Overton Park Conservancy, the Memphis River Parks Partnership, the Memphis Zoological Society, the Memphis Botanical Society, the people that run the Botanic Gardens, and Oakview Group, who run the stadium, and man, am I leaving one out? Oh, Mosh, Memphis Museums Inc.
Oakview runs the stadium, but didn't we sell the stadium?
We did. However, we will need them to run the fairgrounds. So that group.
So
is,
it's really the fairgrounds that they're doing now.
They run both right now, and the
We should,
understanding.
and I want to clarify one thing. This is super important. I just want to get it because the record has to matter here. OVG still manages the still currently owned city stadium. So all the council did was authorize the administration to enter into negotiations for the transfer of the stadium. That transfer has not taken place. So Nick and his partners at OVG have to operate as if that stadium does not get sold. You have to, or transferred rather. So we have to prepare that, and I'm not commenting on anything in the negotiation. I'm just stating a fact that from a practical business standpoint, he has to prepare as if that deal falls apart, specifically so he's not caught,
I understand.
Okay.
But in essentially all of those cases, what we have done is we've gone to either a nonprofit or in the case of OVG, not a nonprofit, to operate a facility on behalf. The Tennis Memphis is the other one. To operate a facility on our behalf, or several facilities. The agreements range anywhere from 5 to 20 years, and they are structured in such a way that typically the operator operates in an at-risk capacity, that we are responsible for some level of major maintenance on the facility, since it is still a city-owned asset. And then traditionally, in every one of those agreements, we spell out the ability to ask, or not to ask, but to put in our capital budget money for either deferred maintenance, new projects, or repairs.
And how is MRPP different?
MRPP is no different in that capacity.
They're one of these groups too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we're looking at MRPP, that's sort of like the zoo, sort of like the conservancy, like the botanical gardens, the relationships we have with them also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Warren, Councilwoman Green, and then Councilwoman Logan.
Hi again, Director, and thank you for all that you do. Every time that I speak to you, I learn something new, like a splash pad being stored in the convention center. And I think your job is more difficult than I can ever really comprehend. I wanted really to ask you about, in the budget book on page 149, there is a big variance in what we've collected in charges for other services and other revenue and what is forecast in FY25. I assume some of that is the stadium and that issue, but our charges for services were over 4 million. In FY23, they actually were over 5 million that we collected. And what we have budgeted for FY25 in the proposed budget is only 675,000. And then other revenues, which I have no idea what those are, in FY23, we actually got over 1 million and we're forecasting 0. So if you can explain where those revenues have evaporated to, that would be great.
Sure. So essentially, all of the variances are because of the stadium transfer. Charges for services is, again, a combination of the rent that is paid by tenants who use the stadium. It is the sponsorship that comes with the naming rights, not just for the overall Simmons Bank, but like there's 6 or 7 different sponsorship deals, whether it's for a stand or for a floor or for a part of the stadium. And then other revenues traditionally are rentals that take place not for football purposes. There are other reasons that people rent the stadium, whether it is a festival or whatever it may be. So again, that's the distinction. There's about 4 different ways that we classified revenues that came from the stadium.
It's a good question, and honestly, it for the last 3 years, 2 years we've been doing it. It's super confusing, but it's also so simple. It's very frustrating because it's a straight flow through. But getting into the accounting of it has always been kind of a nightmare. And so even Walter's nodding. It's just kind of a nightmare, but it's a flow through scenario. The one downside that we're going to miss are the naming rights in some of those rentals, which is unfortunate. But we're discharging a massive liability. Councilwoman Logan.
A moment ago, you were talking about the deferred maintenance. I think it was the question that Councilman Warren asked, and you mentioned that there's a clause or something that gives us, there's a possibility that they can request some. So on deferred maintenance, whose responsibility is it to do the maintenance? And so I don't want it to be like Memphis County Schools to where they don't do the maintenance, then all of a sudden it's all deferred and you got $10 million worth of deferred maintenance because they didn't do the maintenance. How does that work?
No, that's a great question. And we have structured it in such a way that it is always reimbursable. So the work has to be done by the partner, and then they send us where they have paid to have the work done, and we reimburse them to just prevent the scenario that you're talking about. We don't give them cash and say good luck.
But if they don't do it, like say it's something that should be done, whether it's, just routine maintenance or it's preventative maintenance, whatever it is, and they don't do it, and then it comes up to where a lot of stuff is needing to be done that wasn't done because there was no one making them do it or attending to them doing it. What's in place as checks and balances or, to make certain that those things are being done so our asset is not falling apart, then we got to come back and pay $20 million for things that were supposed to have been routine and followed through and done.
No, that's a great question. And I will tell you that on management agreements that I've been a part of drafting, so that would be the MOSH agreement that you're set to vote on in 2 weeks, and the agreement that is currently with Eastern Sports Management, who runs the Sports and Event Center. There is language in there in which there are both inspections that are done by the city on a regular basis, and there is a provision that says either you do it or we'll do it, and we'll talk about who's going to pay for it.
Okay. You said we'll talk about who's going to pay for it? Is
It
that a
depends. It
lawsuit?
depends. No, it just depends on. It depends because they're all different. They all
Okay.
have different thresholds and those sorts of things. So I didn't mean to be ambiguous. It's just
Yeah.
they're all different.
So, last question for clarification. Do all of them, that whole entire list that was mentioned, do they all have that provision in their contracts?
It's a great question. It's been a minute since I've read all of them, but I mean, I think we're happy to look through there and
Please
give you
do.
feedback on
And
it.
I would like to make sure that all of them do have that
Yes, ma'am.
in there so that we won't be liable for deferred maintenance that they should have been doing all along. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And as we, and just as a side note, they're all telling me the same thing. As we update these agreements, that's a provision that is put into every one of them. So when a contract is renewed, that gets put in.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilwoman. I've got Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, but Chair Smiley asked if he could just ask a question that was germane to this.
So I
Thank you, ma'am.
it's more specific about contracts that I guess the parks or city enters in. Is there, I believe, and I'm just not sure, is there language that says those contracts are subject to council's funding?
Yeah, every single one of them.
Every single contract that we sign says subject to council funding. And assuming the council decides not to fund something, what happens? Is there any legal recourse?
That I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even gonna do the John Cena thing where I give a legal opinion without being a lawyer.
So you,
I like to
yeah,
say
each one of them is unique, but you need to pull them. But I think it basically terminates the agreement. However, it could just default the agreement. And I guess in some way, you'd have to read the language, but I guess in some way there might be a provision in there where they could. Well, no, it's not liquidated damages. They have to have that. Those organizations rely on that funding, and so it's like, but for that funding, they can't operate. And if they can't operate, then they're going to be in default. And if they're in default, it gets you to the same. Yeah, it gets you to the same end. All right, Chairman Smiley, you good? Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Walker, for doing all the work that you do. You and Marcia, you always answering all my questions at the last minute. But I do have a question about your tennis major maintenance, and I heard you say next year. And we know the state, I should have known the state of our tennis courts, and you know that I am a tennis player, and I want to know why is this constantly, I've been playing tennis for over 18 years, and these centers are in horrible shape. And so we did a couple things before you got aboard, I think. So that's one. The second is you had a list of all this stuff. I don't think we have that list. You're going to bring it to us. So my ask is the next time we're presenting, and this is for every division, whatever you're going to present to us, please bring it in front of us because my mind is running 100 miles an hour, and I have questions that I want to ask during the time you're presenting, and that gives me visual and gives me a time to be on point with it. The third thing I want to ask you is, for sure, there's $250 million on these youth programs. We have no details. We have nothing to know what they're about. We have no stats, no data. All these programs that we're doing and we're implementing. And I want to know, I heard you say behavioral change as well. And we don't have any facts showing how this is impacting. We know that these community centers are in our brown communities. We know that. Reading is something that's very poor in this city. We know what our education system looks like in the reading and the mathematics. Programs like that need to be implemented. I know they love games, and I understand the video games, and they're children and they want to play. But we also need to focus on things that are going to improve our education with our children and our reading and our mathematics. Most definitely. Secondly, I'm going to talk to the mayor, and you all keep talking about this midnight basketball. Everybody in Memphis needs to be in bed at midnight until we get all this crime and all this stuff under control. No one needs to be circling in Memphis until that. That is a pet peeve of mine right now, this midnight basketball. We need to be at home until we get our city safe, until we get things under control, because I wouldn't want anything to happen to any of us leaving a midnight basketball game because of stray bullets and different things that are happening right now. So we really need to think very hard on that one. But I need to know these programs. We got programs that already exist in this city. input, implement, enhance those programs that are already existing before we create all this other stuff. We need stats, data, I need numbers on how this is impacting our children, behavior change, what is different, and we need something for their parents as well to have some type of accountability with all these programs. So that's my spill. Thank you, Director.
I think legitimately the only thing that I can really address is the tennis. And I understand completely. And I will tell you, so one of the things I'm very grateful for is, and she's not here, daggum it, I got it backwards the other day. Adriana was a big promoter of the literacy meets recreation, and Tiffany was the one who did her master's on video games in centers. So I got them swapped. But the important thing that comes away from that is that I agree with you. I think there is a space for education in recreational centers, and we need to work with that. One of the things I really like doing is partnering with groups like Literacy Mid-South and with our libraries. Keenan is a great partner and has talked about, particularly in situations like Gaston, where we have a library and community centers that are next door to each other, finding a way for them to use our spaces to do their programming so that we can make those opportunities available to more kids. So we will work on that and we will talk about that. Tennis, though, the one answer I can give you. Honestly, this is a contracting issue. So you were a big advocate of the 10-year cycle to resurface every tennis court in the city of Memphis, and I'm very grateful for that. This last year, we had a protest on a bid that delayed the letting of that contract for 7 months. It pushed it outside of the time frame in which you could pour concrete and delayed us to the point where we just needed to take a pause this year with the program. That does not mean that we are going to stop. It means that we're going to finish up that contract this year, and then in FY26, get back on the cycle of doing 2 or 3 tennis courts, like completely resurfacing them. We're demolishing the court itself, doing it. We've been doing this for 4 years, for 5 years. This would have been the 6th year of the program, but again, it's going to take us through this fiscal year to get the construction done that should have been done in last fiscal year because of that bid protest.
So when I look at Leftwich and those beautiful courts that I get an opportunity to play on inside and outside, could we not contract with them that did those courts?
I think we should have a conversation offline about the way the city's contract.
Well, let's have a conversation offline. Perfectly well. And when is Bellevue?
So we actually have had the conversation with the contractor. So you went out and did the walkthrough along with Councilwoman not here. But in any event,
Councilwoman, we will circle back around and we will get you all the answers to your questions and we will address those. Right now, we have not performed and executed the dollars in that line as we should. And I know it takes you by surprise, and I think that's what Director was trying to explain to you. And so we will come back and then fully explain to you where we are in the process, and we'll move forward.
But I think we're close on Bellevue. I think we're close to putting it out for the renovations to be done.
So nobody has messed with those dollars?
No, ma'am.
That's all I want to know.
Yeah, nobody can move. Only
That's all I want to know.
Those dollars.
Those dollars there?
They are there. They're there. You're fine. Okay.
Because I'm going to have to challenge every last one of you on the court, and neither one of you will win.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Chairman.
I've got Councilman Spinoza and then back to Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all. So the $2.5 million on the grants, is that in the budget book? Where would I just didn't? I saw it on the presentation today, but I didn't see it.
Councilman, yes, sir. It is in the budget book.
Where?
The line that I think you actually posed a question on Monday about. I think it's the line major mod and carpentry. I believe is the line.
I'm about to make a motion on that, but that's a totally different.
Well, the 2.5 is part of $5 million that was intended for youth programming. That is the $20 million that the mayor has earmarked. That amount is earmarked for the mayor's new initiatives.
Okay.
The $8 million,
Okay,
$5 million,
so
$5 million, and $2 million.
I appreciate that. All right,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion to amend the mayor's budget.
Second.
Well, the chair's not going to hear any motions as we.
I'm gonna make a motion then to humbly override the chair.
Yeah, so we're not going to do that.
I'd appreciate a second on that.
Because what's going to
The
happen?
motion's been made and properly seconded, Mr. Chairman.
You are out of order, sir.
Excuse me.
You are out of order,
Motion to override the chair.
and you are not recognized to make that motion.
Please explain for the people of Memphis. That'd be great.
We have not had. There's nothing before the body to consider.
I'm about to make the motion, sir.
Where's your resolution?
We have a budget book that is not real. They're bringing us a new one on Monday, and I'd like to make a motion to make it cleaner.
Then go type your resolution up and bring it back.
Made and properly seconded.
Moving on. Councilman Warren.
I guess this is just a question for me to understand for Mr. Walker. So essentially, MRPP is the same as Brooks, is the same as the Conservancy, any other place with the board, right?
And they're all different, but yeah, I mean, essentially, for the most part, they are nonprofit entities that are contracted to manage a city-owned facility.
So why do we have MRPP presenting in our budget and we don't have the Brooks and the zoo and other people? What's the difference there?
I would say that I'm not really in the best position.
But I mean, I don't understand that because it seems to me like if we're scrutinizing them to this point or they're presenting to us, and I'm trying to figure out if they're similar or the same, what's the difference in why are they here? And, so you don't know the answer to that, neither
The
do
only
I.
thing I can say is that I think it's historical. I mean,
because
it predates me. It predates me.
So at some point, they came to present?
Again, that's just an assumption. So, but yeah, that's
Okay.
to answer your question, I don't know.
All right. Okay, thank you. I'll keep delving. I'll ask them, and maybe they have the answer when they come up. But it seems to me that well, I don't know. Let's see what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for colleagues? All right, thanks for being here. We've got the River Parks Partnership up next.
Returning your phone call on Hudson. I apologize. I'm at the city hall. Step out. Okay. One second. Oh, you're
Peace over this meeting right now in Jesus' name.
You guys ready?
I'm going to place an official.
All right, everyone, we're going to get started with partnerships so we can keep this thing moving.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm looking through notes here. All right, welcome, Memphis River Parks Partnership. If we could get names and titles, and the floor is yours for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Carol Coletta, President, CEO of Memphis River Parks Partnership. Do you need my address?
No, just
Okay,
the title.
great.
Hey, if everybody that's coming in, if you guys wouldn't mind keeping it down, we're in the middle of a hearing. Thank you.
Art Davis, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer of the partnership.
Tyree Daniels, Chairman.
Thank you so much for having us today. I know Councilman Warren was asking questions about why we're separate, and I think I know, but I'll address that as we go. We are a 501c3. We're a nonprofit that works with and for the people of Memphis to trigger the transformative power of our river right at the city's front door. Just to give you a sense of our scope, we manage 26 properties as best we can count along 6 miles of riverfront from on the north end where the Wolf River flows into the Mississippi at the top end of Mont Island, and all the way down to Chickasaw Heritage Park south of the I-55 bridge. Over 7 years, the partnership has raised $80 million for city assets. That does not include, Councilman Carlisle, anything that, any CIP funds from the city. So those are $80 million for city that have gone into city assets.
Much like the zoo, too. The zoo raises money, same, just to give an example.
Yes, yes, exactly. You're not shrugging me off, are you? that was hard work. Yeah. Okay. And you can see we've opened 4 major assets during that time: River Garden, River Line, the 5-mile bike ped trail along the riverfront, Fourth Bluff Park, then Tom Lee, and we've done a number of projects on Mont Island we'll give you a quick look at, and then finally we hope to break ground very soon on a 5th project. Where am I going and why is it stuck? There we go. Councilman Carlisle, you mentioned data-driven decisions being made by Parks, and Nick's doing a great job of that. Just to show you some of the data, we mow 320 acres every 10 days. That's 14,000, that's 14.6, million square feet that we clean. We put eyes on daily and clean daily. We've had 10,000 school students visit the riverfront on learning field trips in just one semester. This past semester, really pleased about that. I think Councilwoman Logan, you were asking about classes and for whom. We've got 60 plus fitness classes, just fitness classes, scheduled for this year, and more are coming. So we haven't even started summer yet. Just a couple of other things I'll point to on this. We just got a designation, a really fun designation, as having the 3rd most unique playground in the U.S. We expect our 500,000th visitor to Tom Lee Park since our opening, and again, we have not had our first summer season. And I want to point out something that we're really proud of. Our ranger team, 94% of the people in Tom Lee Park rate the park's cleanliness as excellent or good. This is something that we are, again, particularly proud of. In the first few months of our park, of Tom Lee Park being open, you remember it opened Labor Day. That's when Riverside Drive was still closed, but 88% ranked safety in the park as good or excellent. And I think you were talking earlier about, the need to make sure people feel safe, and we're really pleased with that that rating as well. So all of that's based on survey data of people in the park. Just to note, our newest asset, Tom Lee Park, again, I mentioned the 500,000th visitor we're expecting this month. I think we've already had it. Those visitors come from 128 zip codes, and I'm going to show you a heat map that really shows you they are coming from all over the community. And people are spending a long time in the park. They're spending an average of 82 minutes on any one visit. So that's a long time that people are spending in the park. They're finding a lot to do. This is an interesting heat map. It's based on Placer AI data taken from cell phones. So it doesn't include even the kids, generally kids who aren't carrying. In fact, it does not include cell phones of kids under 14. But you can see they are coming from all over. They're coming from all the council districts and from far reaches in the county. I spoke last week to the Germantown Chamber and was really pleased when I asked, well, who's visited the park, Tom Lee Park? And about 75% of the people in the room raised their hand, they are excited about good news about Memphis. We have also produced, the park has produced 80 plus national media stories that have been very positive about Memphis since opening. And again, I think that's something we all want, is good news about Memphis nationally. So it's nice to have see the park produce that. Just a quick note on Tom Lee Park funding. There seem to be some questions about it. Just to note, once again, city has no CIP funding in the park. You do have, in fact, TDZ money, and I remember when now Mayor Young was head of HCD and made the presentation to council for those funds. That was a 42% MWBE spend. I think it's the largest percentage of MWBE spending on any project of that size in Memphis. And I also want to point out that before we go to our CIP request, some people have asked, some on the council have asked about Mud Island and the project status. If you recall, we had, some of you will recall, and you passed it, $4 million in Accelerate Memphis money. We have spent that on about 21 projects in Mud Island. You can see a list of them here. We've got 2 still in progress, but all of those, all $4 million are now committed from the Accelerate budget. This pales in comparison to Memphis Parks. What we're requesting in FY25 is simply a $250,000 cover line. That is exactly what we had, and for FY24, it's not yet been appropriated. But we asked for a cover line. I thought there was a very good description. Councilman Carlisle, I think you were the one who spoke about the importance of the park's cover line, and ours is the same. In fact, I would just point out that who was it that asked about maintenance? You asked about maintenance, Councilwoman Logan. You were saying, how do you know the maintenance is done, right, when Parks was here? It's interesting, if you look at, I just took 4 of our assets. We've got 26, but let's take 4 of your assets that we manage on your behalf. Mud Island, River Garden, Beale Street Landing, and the new Tom Lee Park. And if you take the 1% for maintenance, those of you, some of you on the council are in real estate, 1% for maintenance is a rule of thumb. If you took the original value of these parks and you took a pretty conservative approach to at least Mud Island, most of the rest of them are newer, we would be spending $1.6 million a year on maintenance, but we have a $250,000 cover line. So just to point that out, I will say that when we pursued the Tom Lee Park remake, we committed as a partnership that we would fund maintenance on the park. Yeah. Well, there are 2 issues. We had an FY24 $250,000 cover line.
It's an ongoing cover line, like the convention center gets $400,000 a year as an ongoing cover line for minor or major, but usually it is minor park R&M.
Yeah. That's right. So FY24, we had a $250,000 cover line. That has not yet been appropriated. We are certainly hoping you will do that before the fiscal year ends. And we have a FY25 $250,000 cover line request. That is the only capital improvement request we have for this coming fiscal year. These are direct park expenses, and this is where we focus city money. You can see the detail on that there. Our total park-related expenses and our 4 point.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that I understand define direct park expenses, that scope, because my next question would be, does that mean Beale Street Landing? Can you define what that scope is?
Yeah, so these are all the expenses that are directly related to the physical assets or the park itself.
So anything you operate, these are if I cost segged it out, the cost seg says these expenses are directly to any asset managed by the partnership. Okay,
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
So it takes out all the expenses of leadership. And
Sure. All your
development.
SG&A, but ultimately, like, it does include Beale Street Landing, and it doesn't just, because when I hear park, I'm just thinking like Tom Lee Martyrs, but it's all assets.
All assets. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. So that amount is 4.097. And if this is a good way to look at it, if you, what we're requesting of the city this year is $3.099 million. That is, if you look at that, one way to look at that is as a savings to the city of about $1 million. And if you add in the indirect park expenses, which is the rest of our budget, of course, the city pays none of that. So that's another effectively $1 million. So, we would suggest that one way to look at this budget is that we're bringing $2 million in savings for the city. So that's money that you're not funding that we're bringing from in other ways. And just finally, if you look at the last 10 years of City of Memphis funding for the partnership, we started with 2.97 in 2015. We're now at 3.09, and just looking at inflation there, we would, the same amount of money in 2015 would be $3.85 million now. So that's a summary of what we are doing, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. President. I've got Dr. Warren and Councilwoman Logan so far in the queue.
Thank you for that presentation. Just looking at what you guys are doing now and how you're sort of fitting into the situation, it does seem like you're a park and you're a management for a park and property, much like the Brooks and other things that we have. So I'm wondering, as we move forward, if it may not be better to have, instead of having you come and present this to us, just have you be part of the parks budget so it comes in that way. Before, you weren't in parks, you were like part of a development corporation downtown. I think that was the answer to my question, right? You were part of the Downtown Development Corporation, and now you're not. So now you're part of our governmental body, and the place you ought to fit is that. So not that it has anything to do with your budget this time or anything going along, but I think that sort of thing may be better, may serve us better as a city, as opposed to having you be sort of an independent quasi-parks organization without the benefit of the umbrella of the parks. So
It would
I'll
take
just leave
us a
it there.
long time to go through the history and lineage of
Yeah,
this organization.
there's a whole bunch of lineage that got
and
you
all
here.
the misunderstandings too. I mean,
Yeah,
like
and
the
I think
cobblestones.
that may be where the misunderstandings
Yeah, look,
come from.
I mean, I didn't want to digress in this, but to the point, like, there's a misunderstanding in many regards about what the former Riverfront Development Corporation, which still is in existence, the kind of like the DMC is still the Center City Commission. But the point is that prior to about 2015, 16, they were a facilitator of capital and overseeing projects while maintaining the parks, and they are still that. Like the Cobblestone project continually the partnership seems to take dings in it. They are literally nothing but I don't even know if you're a fiduciary. You're almost just a facilitator.
Y'all don't have anything to do with college centers,
It's
right?
it's a T-dot City of Memphis project, right? But anyway, I'm digressing. The point is, to Councilman Warren's point, they are a they manage a city-owned asset just like the zoo is probably the closest partner, and same for Mosh. And so therefore they receive an amount to do so that helps supplant their income. When we lost Mud Island and just before when concerts stopped, that was almost $300,000, $400,000 a year, maybe a little high, maybe 250, 300 net revenue to that organization. So they were very self-sustaining. And I think the conversation's always been, and just what it is, whether it's, I think Carol's making the point subtly in her presentation, which is if you shift, it could be more expensive to do so, et cetera. And we have was that fair? Is that fair estimation?
And I think with that, if you're looking at the zoo and other organizations, I don't think it changes anything to do with your board or how you function. It's just where you come in, because otherwise we should be having a presentation from Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
We should be having a presentation from Mosh. We should be having, and that's not really the purpose of our budget hearings, to have each one of these individual people come up and present. So that's where I'm coming from.
And I think that's fair. I think from the budget, from the chair's perspective, we try to cut down on that. Honestly, the partnership, I think, ended up here specifically because of the downline stuff and the amount. And as the Brooks transitions, and as all these things transition, they'll end up kind of like some of the grant agencies. But I hear your point. And I think Nick makes a good point too. I'm not like Carol or Nick. I don't apply for grants, but I know that the size of your parks budget matters in some of those areas. So I think
it may help us.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. I'm sorry,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Warren.
Chair. I yield.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation and for the work that you do. I do think this is, as with all of our city amenities, even though, we're in a crunch, they add a great deal of value. I wouldn't be thinking about adding on anything additional at this time, but the ones that we do have, we have to make certain that we shore them up, and you all do a great job. I appreciate the innovation. When you come over the bridge, you want to see big lights and nice amenities and innovation, and Memphis is on the map and I'm home, and you want that to look nice. So I do value what you all bring to the city. It's like our front door, and you want to keep it nice. You want to keep it innovative. So I appreciate that. And I was looking at your, I don't know, this is a different presentation, but the one I saw before, where even though Mud Island is kind of in limbo or kind of sitting there, you guys are still keeping it, changing out the lights and changing out some of the old things a little bit at a time. And I think that's important as well. And even with the restaurant that's down there, Mahogany's that's down there, I think we have the makings of a great front. And I think we just need to really continue to work with you all, and you all continue to do the work that you do. I appreciate it. And I think it adds value to our city at a time when we need it, and we need something good to talk about and to be able to experience, and it's free. So I really appreciate and support it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as your new council, I have a lot of questions, and it's not only for me, but for my constituents as well, and to bring me abreast of what's happening and what's going on. I just heard Councilwoman Logan gave you your kudos for, when they entered the city, all that's beautified and all of that, which is good. My question is, you're asking for how much?
3.099.
3.099. This is just a question, and I have several questions. The 3.5 million, is that something that you got before? Does that ring a bell from last year?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. I'm just asking.
No, that's fine.
And I'm going somewhere, because these are questions that when they ask me, I need to just make sure that everyone has a very clear understanding of what. The constituents feel that there is no oversight over your spending and more detail about what's going on. And so we would like to see a little bit more oversight when you come to the city and you get the city's money, we like to see a little bit more oversight and more accountability. And I think I'm asking that across the board with everyone, just not you all, just a little bit more oversight and accountability. The second thing is, the question was that you all have some offices in iBank, is that correct?
Yes, for Commerce Square, yes.
And they're wondering why iBank, because it's very expensive. And maybe you all can maybe change your location or maybe even get people to work from home, because they're saying that it's very expensive and you pay very big salaries. Is that true?
We pay competitive salaries, and we were able to, we started in the Falls building. The organization was in Falls building for years. The Falls building was vacated because new owners, and then we were able, and that was during, we didn't have a lot of options because Chamber of Commerce, everybody was, of course, leaving that building. So we found space in the Commerce Square, and I will tell you, I believe for us, we manage places, right? So we're in the places all the time. I think it is, I came back, 3 weeks into COVID? You came back 4 or 5 weeks into COVID? I mean, we worked all through COVID in the office because we felt like our rangers were out in the, in the parks, and it was inappropriate for us not to be on the job. They were on the job, so we were on the job in place. And I think I believe our staff benefits greatly from being together in a place. And we work in open space. We don't have individual offices. And we house others. We host others in the space to use for their purposes. And it actually gives us a view of almost all the property we operate. And we use binoculars a lot. So, and it's pretty much in the center, so we can get to the different properties that we manage pretty quickly.
So is anyone on your staff working from home?
No one on our staff works from home. There are days when they work from home, childcare falls apart, those things.
So maybe you all should think about smaller offices, because that iBank building is very expensive. Is that? So this is what I'm needing moving forward, because you come before us every year. You're asking for city money. We need more oversight and more accountability, how these funds are being spent and how they're being used and how they're being allocated. So can we get that moving forward?
Sure. I mean, we'll give it to you right now. There's no, we're audited every year. There seems to be some confusion about that. Yeah. We're audited every year. We can give you, our financials are available, and we're happy to share them with you.
That would be wonderful.
So there's the audit, and if you'd like a copy of it now, he happens to have one.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
Because when these questions come to me.
That's everything.
Yes.
That's every detail I think you'd want.
Yeah.
So
these questions come to me, I want to be able to answer the constituents.
Sure.
And to prove and to let them see that what you're doing and how you're handling the city's money that you're asking for, just like any other operation that's going to sit in that seat.
Sure.
This administration is going to ask, and we need to see and we need to know how it's being used. And we're going to do a better oversight and accountability, because that's what we promised. And to close the gap of all this speculation of misuse of money. And so.
So if I can just address one of the things, some of the questions that you were asked about the salaries and the offices. Excuse me, yes. So some of the questions that you're asking about the offices and the salaries and all that, that is not being paid through the city funding. The only salaries being paid for the city funding are those directly related to park operations, which is our director of Riverfront Properties and the leadership team that goes with that, programming, and 23 rangers.
Is all that in here?
Yeah, you'll be able to see most of that, because you'll be able to see what's actually allocated.
So what are you going to use the 3.99 for?
Okay, so that's broken out in your presentation, that one of the sheets that we handed.
Sheets. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And so that is
It's park, direct park operations.
Yeah, so it includes administrative park rangers, general operating and programming as far as employee compensation goes. And then the operating expenses are programs and activities, utilities, which is a huge part of that. $675,000 of that goes directly to MLGNW. Materials and supplies, repairs and maintenance, telephone and communication, insurance. Of our insurance budget, which is $350,000 of that goes back to the city to help cover some of the costs that the city incurs for their insurance. We pay a portion of that. Maintenance agreements, marketing, landscaping services. In between, we spend $733,000 cutting grass, maintaining trees, landscaping beds. That's where $733,000 of it. And then, of course, legal fees, because we have to defend when there is a lawsuit that happens on a city asset or city property. So there's the very detail of that. I don't know which page number it is in your presentation.
Toward the back.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at it.
It's marked. Just
And
just
so
to
the
add one.
400,000 that we are owing, the 250 that you say you all that we owe you that we have that you're asking for, plus the other 250. What is that actually for? So that's $400,000, right? 500. So is that going to be? Is that already included in this? Is this something totally different?
Yes.
I'm just trying to get. I'm feeling my way. I'm feeling my way. Feeling my way.
Okay, so I got you. I'm feeling my way too. FY24 is it $250,000 cover line was budgeted, but it had you have to then appropriate it. All right, so that's one thing
that's CI. So yeah, you've got their operating money, which is the 3.3, which is the contract funding, and then you've got the CIP. So now we're sitting in the CIP, and we 250 line item. Then the council has to say, hey, we're going to give you the 250, and that resolution came, and then I wasn't in the chamber, but all hell broke loose, I think, at some point. But that's sitting out there. And then now we are, and I'm sorry, but now we are in fiscal year 25 ask, and so they are asking that they get another 250 going into this calendar or into this fiscal year. So that's where they're at, Councilwoman.
Okay.
And if you want to know how we would have spent the 250 in FY24, I mean, to give you an example, we're happy to do it. But
yes, I would love to know that. How? Yes.
Well, yes. Let me just give you a few examples. We repaired the surface of the play pod north of Beale Street Landing. Lots of skateboarders had used it, and it became a safety hazard. We spent money on that. We repaved the Wagner parking lot. Primarily because there was a terrible trip and fall where the plaintiff sued us and the city, and so we repaired it so there would be no more no more chances that.
So are you finished with the Wagner parking lot? Are we completed with that?
Yes, we are, and we finished the play pad, and we also replaced the compressors at Beale Street Landing. Those are examples. There are a couple of other things that we will do with that 250.
Why don't you dive in for the councilwoman? Just a couple of examples of the Accelerate Memphis or the $4 million. Just talking about I'll say this. This is just
we can talk offline.
Sure, but this is good though because it's part of finances, part of what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think what I would say is that
yes.
No matter any opinions, the reality is that the partnership like the Brooks or the Zoo's a better example just because or maybe the Overton Park Conservancy might be the best. They may be the most similar at this point. They are an asset manager and a property manager. And the property manager's job is just like any other property manager at a building or an apartment building or an office building. They're the person you call when something breaks. They're responsible for fixing small things, et cetera. They're also the city's asset manager. So they're also responsible for overseeing the financial wealth or the financial viability and success of the assets that they manage on behalf of the city, much like the OPC is responsible for the golf course and the zoo is responsible for the zoo.
Okay.
And in that, this is the rub where the public, from where I'm sitting, and this is just my opinion, gets upset, is they are not responsible for major cap X. And that would be when the life cycle of something runs it down. Buildings are 29 and a half years. Equipment gets 27 and a half years. The IRS defines the life cycle of these assets. And what has happened, and Mud Island is the most salient, tangible example, is that the organization takes a lot of flack because of the condition of some of the assets over there. Some people will take a picture of a cracked light or concrete or the HVAC is not working. Those are things in which the city of Memphis has to appropriate money as the owner. Just as like if I owned an apartment building and the HVAC breaks, I still have to go fix that. I can't, my property manager is not, their company's not going to pay for that. This is a little bit unique in the owner relationship, but that is the big, I guess I'm just trying to paint a difference between keeping up with signage and things like that versus major pieces of equipment or major facilities like the wading pools, snack bar. Like the snack bar is obsolete, but the bathrooms are still there, so the bathrooms are important. And so I hope that helps at least provide a little bit of color and context.
Yes, it does. But I'll talk with you, Carol,
Sure.
a little bit more offline
Anytime.
because there are some other things that I have. But that kind of cleared some of the context, and I hope it cleared it up for my constituents who had a lot of questions about it. And thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the questions. They're very good. Councilwoman White.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things that you just mentioned was about ensuring the financial success. That's what the Chairman just mentioned. If you could just tell us a little bit about your efforts to generate revenue or the plans that you have that's coming up.
Yeah, we have earned revenue and we have contributed revenue. And so our earned revenue comes from docks, the overnight cruise ship docks, from parking, from event rentals, which
I think that's where the councilwoman's going is more programming rental. The programming that you guys do, like the kayak in the summer. What are you guys doing outside as an organization with your programming to drive the event rentals and programming, et cetera, that can help drive revenue? I think is more where she's at, not just the city contracts for the docks.
Yeah, well, I mean, using the, I mean, we've got a whole collection of assets that for, I think, years really sort of overlooked the rental potential. So we're doing a lot of that, but making sure that we balance event rentals for private events or ticketed events with public access, right? So we want to make sure that even this year with the two big festivals in May, we were able to provide more public access during May than we had been able to do before, which was great. So the public comes first, right? Free public access comes first. That's what these assets are for. But then we use them also to generate revenue to make sure we can plow that back into the programming, like a skate night, like a kayak, night, all the things that we do, all the fitness programs we do, to make sure that the public can enjoy it free of charge. But the contributed revenue, honestly, we've given the $80 million we've raised over the last few years for the assets. We're now turning our attention to operating funding, right? So generating operating funding. It's clear that the city is, I hope we haven't hit a ceiling forever with the city because I think, it's the partnership that makes these assets add value for the citizens of Memphis. But we're really turning our attention now to how do we increase our annual operating funding.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Good questions. Chairman Smiley, the floor is yours, and we're going to wrap up with the chairman since we're about 6 minutes past. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Chairman Carlisle. So a couple questions. Contractually, how much, assuming the council, so let me, I want to set the stage first of all. We don't owe anybody anything. I want to be clear about that. And I asked a very direct question to Chief Adams earlier and Director Walker. It was more so about, all contracts are subject to council approval. So I don't want us to operate in the mindset or the belief that we owe anyone any funding. We don't. Literally, if we decide to say no, it's just no. That's one thing. Two, as it relates to the contract that ultimately council has purview, how much is allocated to MRPP? How much funding is given to you all pursuant to the contract that you all have with the city? No one.
What's your ask? What's your ask?
Oh, the ask.
Not this year, just on the contract. Is it $250,000 pursuant to the contract? What
No.
does the contract say?
No.
I just
No.
want to know what the contract says. Can someone tell me?
The management agreement, you're
Yes,
speaking of management
yes,
agreement. I don't, it's 20 plus years old. So I'd have to go back and look at, I think it basically calls for, I think it calls for an annual decision about the funds.
Okay, so that's concerning if the contract's been around for 20 years and we don't know what it says. That's one thing. Two, and what is the current ask for the council?
The current ask is a capital commitment of $250,000 cover line and 3.099 in operating.
Okay, so let me, with it, just talk about the operating. You just hit the capital into a different bucket. Let's talk about the operating. The operating is essentially, I'm just saying $3 million, slightly more, $3 million. Does the mayor's current budget account for this $3 million?
Yes, it does.
Are you sure? So if I was to, are you sure?
Well, I'll ask.
I know the answer to the question. I'm only asking the question that I know the answer to. Are you sure that the 75 cents tax increase accounts for this $3 million? Wait for it. I want you to talk. Take a moment and talk. I'm gonna tell you my concern, and this is my belief. But please correct me if I'm wrong. We spent a lot of time talking about all the new programs that the mayor has proposed, and if this $3 million funding request is not a part of the mayor's proposal, what this tells people is we're adding extra cents to the current tax increase. So what I want you to do when you leave here, because I haven't made a decision on what I believe needs to happen, I would like you to reach out to the administration to find out if this current $3 million funding request is a part of the current proposal from the city. Because nowhere do I see a $3 million funding request for Memphis River Parks in the mayor's budget. Nowhere. It's not there. And then I'm just gonna leave it there because I just really think that this caught people off guard in terms of the amount of funding that's requested. And I think as we have conversations about being good stewards of the city dollars, I'm not so sure. And another question I have is when we talk about this, when we usually, at least in the recent years, when we reach out and attempt to find folks who do management agreements, I'm not sure if we've ever done an RFP to see if MRPP is truly the best. I just don't know if we've ever done that. Another concern of mine. And then I think there was a statement made, and I just wholeheartedly disagree with this statement. I do not believe the statement that was made was this: MRPP is the reason that the city assets provide value to the people of Memphis. Something along those lines. I think this was just, I don't buy that either. I'm not so sure if we shouldn't be really having realistic conversations about what it looks like to return this to within the city of Memphis. I just don't know. So I want someone to make an argument why we shouldn't do that at some point. I want to know whether if this current $3 million in operating, is it accounted for within the mayor's tax increase? I want to know what the contract actually says as it relates to annual funding for MRPP. And I think that will just essentially cover my current request. I want to know those answers so that I can make an informed decision. And I'm asking these questions in all with as much candor as I normally do, because I have some concerns. Some of my concerns are shared by Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Some of my concerns are shared by Councilman Spinoza. Some of my concerns are shared by Councilwoman White. And if Councilwoman Swearings were here, she would share some of my concerns. There's a lot of members, and maybe not as direct as me, who are concerned with the leadership, with the direction of MRPP. There's concerns. I just don't really have a reason to be reason not to tell you. So you're hearing it from me. There's people on this body concerned. I just want answers.
Chairman, may I?
I mean,
if we and just out of respect to Chief Pearson, Chairman Smiley, if you, a very brief response, and then I want to. Here's Jim. Very brief response. We're not done. We've got weeks of wrap up, et cetera. And then I've got Cooper Sutton and Logan in the queue.
Yeah,
I
just
know.
want answers to my questions. So
Yeah, and I think if you don't mind, Chairman, if I could allow the CFO to respond, just a very brief response.
The only thing I want to interject, basically, it is in the budget.
Accounted?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's on page 10 of 191 in the original proposed budget.
Thank you, Chief Person. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, and then to Councilwoman
Just
Logan.
a quick question, not a question, but an ask. But Director Walker walked out. I want to see that 20-year contract. We had to do the same thing with Tennis Memphis. I want to see that 20-year contract. I need that contract pulled because I'm going to read it from page to page like we had to do with Tennis Memphis. And some things has to be changed. That's 20 years ago that this contract came in. Did I just hear correct? So make sure you get that contract to me, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Logan.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, we do have quite a few, as we've talked about, we have quite a few management agreements. Now, if we're going to set it to where, I think we should consider if we're going to set it to where all of them are up for review, or are you saying just this one, or because this has been 20 years in the making, and now we all of a sudden.
So it's not about being all of a sudden. It's things that I don't know. I don't know if there's ever been an RFP. I know we did an RFP for. I'm almost certain we did an RFP for the management agreement at.
The zoo.
Yeah, man, you'd have to talk to some older dogs out
So
there.
we might need, if we're going to, I think we should across the board look at all of them, because you might be onto something. If we never did, and if we need to at this point, I would say let's do it across the board, not just select some. And if that's the way we're going to go, and that's something we as a body need to decide. But I do know that we're having trouble already managing the things that we're managing with the, we look at the labor market, we look at other things and the cost. And I think they're managing this property at approximately 75 cents on the dollar. So, those are some things that we do need to consider. I'm all about us doing our job and being, looking at everything, every dollar, but I do think it needs to be fair and equitable across the board. So I would say that, and look at where we are as a city. Can we take on management of all of these assets ourselves? And before we kind of, act hastily, and especially the fact that, there's some other things going on. We got one bridge, when it's down, there's some, not that this is not important, but there's more critical things that we, need to be thinking about. So that's my thing. I would say as a body, if we're going to look at the management agreements, let's look at them across the board and not just select some. Thank you.
Councilwoman White.
I just wanted to clarify for the record because Councilwoman White speaks for herself. I have met with them. I have gotten a very good understanding of what's going on. I did not understand about the $250K. I thought I understood. Now I'm even a little bit more confused. But for the most part, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for your presence here today. We are wrapping up, and I'll just go ahead and say this, Shondell, for you and your group. We are wrapping up hearings today and tomorrow. The council, the way that I like to do this, and I owe Councilman Spinoza an apology, caught me off guard. The way that I like to do this is that we get through the hearings and then give council members the opportunity to go back, get their notes, get with their staff, go meet with agencies, go meet with directors, and or if they are ready to present a budget to the public themselves, it gives them the week to do that. And then we convene as a body, and then that entire week is motions and amendments, et cetera. And so the reason I'm saying that, because you guys aren't in the building with us, is that over the coming week or so, probably expect phone calls and meetings, et cetera, for that as we get into the budget season. And then what I would say is, and we'll get dates out, like public announcements, but as we go into wrap up the week of June 3rd, and we'll have contacted you before then, but if we need you to come back, we will send that and give you context, et cetera, as best I can. But that's kind of, yeah. Do you want to introduce your team really quickly? Councilwoman Logan was asking who everybody in the room is, and then Councilman Spinoza, I'll come to you.
But I also agree with some of the stuff JB said as well. And I think maybe y'all are getting in the crossfire like a lot of people have for all the right reasons. And again, this isn't like personal towards Walter or the administration, but I was going to make a motion today, and we'll do it later. You get to see two friends duke it out a little bit today. I was not out of order, and you know it. But anyways, $20 million under carpentry, and we work. It's more than a part-time job, a lot, and do all this research and do all these things to not raise people's taxes. And we found out today that $2.5 million of it is going to parks. Where's the other 17.5 going? And I want to know the answers now, right? I mean, I'm pretty impatient, and we need to figure out this budget. Yesterday, we found 29 million. So in the last 24 hours, in my mind, we found $49 million. We saved the city 36 cents off the tax increase. So I want the citizens of Memphis to know that we're down here working for them. And I'm excited about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman.
Just a point of information.
Dr. Warner,
I just want to let Councilman Spinoza know, never get into arguing with a guy that has a gavel. They're good.
It's coming down. Thanks. All right. The weird day. Really quickly, though, more importantly, if you wouldn't mind at least introducing your team that's here and board members. I see board members, and I think it's important to extend the courtesy for those that came down here. Her board is all volunteer, and they built a great team, and so I think it's reasonable that you do that.
Michael Nolan is our head of properties management. So the entire ranger, he takes care of all that property. And his ranger team is fantastic. You want to introduce them, Michael?
Yeah, sure. So lead ranger Nicole Ebner, got Kevin Pendleton, one of our rangers, hands up. You got Jane, who's one of our lead rangers, and you got Mike. Welcome, Senate.
If you're a board member here in support of the partnership, if you'll stand up as well.
Yeah.
A lot of familiar faces out there. Thank you, everybody.
And then we have three other members of our team. Jasmine, who does the programming, Orlicia, who does our rentals, and Andrew, who raises our money. All right, that's right. That's what he always tells us. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for your presence here today. We'll be reaching out. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it.
All right. If everybody's cool, we'll just roll right on into the Downtown Memphis Commission, formerly known as the Center City Commission. All right. I didn't really recess out, recess in. Here we are. All right, colleagues, if you're in the back, we're going to begin with the Downtown Memphis Commission. We welcome back former Chief Operating Officer, Deputy Chief Operating Officer, Interim Solid Waste Director, and Labor Negotiations Lead, Shondell Ryan.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody.
Big crowd. Honestly, Shondell's smart enough to know just like, hell yes, I'm gonna get through this fast.
Go fast, quick talk.
Thank you all for having us today. We're happy to be here to tell you about our budget at the Downtown Memphis Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that introduction. That warmed my heart. So just to talk a little bit about the Downtown Memphis Commission. Next slide, please. Right here. Okay. So we are a central business improvement district, like many across the nation. A part of what we do is augment city services. We do work to make downtown safer, cleaner, and more welcoming on the streets and neighborhoods. We add vibrancy and amenities. We reduce blight. We work to increase property values, and we also market and promote downtown to make sure that we have a strong core. And I want to point out from the beginning, all of the funding that we receive is it is not a city-funded initiative. It is no city or county dollars. We are funded through an assessment, and I'll talk more about that. It's not a tax. It's an assessment. So in the spirit of introducing team members, I have some people here with me today that I will take the liberty of introducing as well. This is our org chart for our overall organization. We are a mighty team of about 50 individuals, 41 of them full-time and 9 part-time. I'll speak a little bit about the management team here. So first I have my office manager and executive assistant, Christine Taylor. She's the longest tenured, 27 years. Amazing asset. Milton Howery is the vice president of marketing, communications, and events. The admin VP and CFO and CCO is Miss Penelope Springer here next to me. Also, our COO, Brett Roller, he is away at the current time getting CEPTED training, and that's crime prevention through environmental design. I also have the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Tori Halliburton is here with us. Our Clean Green Manager is away. Our Director for Hospitality and Security, Lawrence Green, is here as well. And I do have Bill Street's Director, John Shivers. You see there's a dotted line for Bill Street because it is not funded through the CBID assessment. It is a separate entity, so that's why it's a dotted line. Yes, it's just by agreement. So we are building a strong downtown from everyone. That's just some pictures of some activations and things that we do in and around downtown. Next slide, please. Part of what we look at is our residential population. We're sitting right around 25K residents. 48% of those are millennial Gen Z. That's really good. That's good for business growth. They're looking for that kind of talent, and we have a lot of that talent downtown. We have about just under 73,000 daytime population. We love that people are back at work, and we would love to see more people back into offices. So we're looking to continue to grow that number as well. So this slide here just shows the growth since COVID compared to some of our other peer cities. As you can see, we're the very top line. And that is our population growth in comparison to cities like Kansas City, Missouri, Nashville, Louisville, and Oklahoma. So we're doing really well, and we're looking to continue the growth that we're seeing. In the next slide, it shows the metrics that we pay attention to. We are looking to have more people, and we're looking to have higher property values. Again, we have about 25K residents, about just under 73 daytime population, and you can see our values as compared to the city proper, county, and downtown specifically is about 1.419 million.
This also shows our vitality from the pandemic recovery. You can see that we are number 5 in terms of how we bounced back from the pandemic, which is really great for Memphis and great for downtown in particular. So I'm going to talk about our budget overview. The 4 areas, the 4 categories that we focus in on is safety and hospitality. That's about 46% of our budget. Beautification and clean and green, that's litter and maintenance and removal of litter and trash, landscaping and any anti-blight work. That's 21%. Community building, development and diversity. That is about 17% of the budget. That's where we do programs to promote growth and increase our MWBE capacity and encourage adaptive reuse. For our marketing, events, and activation, we spend about 16%. We produce a number of inclusive events, or we will help sponsor other events. So to dive into that a little bit more, in terms of our safety and hospitality, this is typically done by our Blue Suede Brigade, and those members, about 30 plus strong. They are trained security officers. They're trained in de-escalation. They also help to support our unhoused population. If you look at our metrics from last year, there were about 1,100 referrals to partner agencies like the Hospitality Hub and Alliance Healthcare. We had about 202,000 interactions that we tracked with visitors. For our beautification and clean and green efforts, we're looking to create our city's best front door experience. We do things like power washing. We have 3 dog parks, one that we just added to support the residential population downtown. We maintain those with litter cleanup and any maintenance that occurs with those dog parks. We just had a community cleanup event. We had some city employees to participate. It was a really fun time. It was a great day. The weather was fantastic, and we painted the benches out front of City Hall and did some other things to beautify, other beautification efforts. Also, we, as a part of our beautification, we have increased our clean and green team by about 2 employees. We participate in trash and debris removal. We tracked about 88,000 pounds of trash that we collect from the Main Street Mall. Also, we do lighting and beautifications. You may sometimes, if you're walking downtown, see an alleyway that may have lighting in it. That probably is something that was done by the Downtown Memphis Commission. In the marketing, events, and activation bucket, we hosted about 268 free public events downtown. If you haven't been to our yoga event, I think that's the 3rd picture. It has grown tremendously. It's well-attended, it's weekly, it's a well-attended event, and we can all use some yoga and take a moment and calm down. So it's a very nice event. We love to see anyone to come and visit. In our marketing and promotions, we had about 6.1 million social impressions, with our events, we've seen about 765,000 people to enjoy the events, and this is the reach that we've had with the activations that we have participated in. Next slide. So in talking about the community building, some of what we do, for example, we have an initiative called Open on Main, and it allows for emerging entrepreneurs to take a space that is otherwise unoccupied and vacant, and we pair them with that property owner, and we help to sponsor a short-term lease so they can test out ideas and bring some vibrancy to vacant spaces. And we've seen some success with this program. I'm really happy about the performance of it. I'll talk a little bit about it. I'm sorry. Bookstore is our most recent one. There's a massage place called the Jasper, and it's doing phenomenally well. Yeah, it's really great. We also provide some pre-development assistance to help with emerging developers, mainly our MWBE emerging developers. We also We also participate with MATA to help bring district-wide low-cost transit, and that is the efforts that we have with them for the Groove on Demand downtown. So we help to support that initiative. Next slide. These are some pictures of some people who have participated in the Open on Main incentive, and if you look at the picture at the bottom right, that's the Jasper Salon group that I was talking about a little bit earlier. This slide here shows our proposed budget. I talked earlier about an assessment that we receive. It is not a tax. Again, it is assessment that is on the commercial properties that are in and around our CBID, and that is specifically for downtown. For this year, we believe our CBID assessment should come in at about $4.7 million. That is the first number you see on the second column, first number on the second column at the top. That's the $4.7 million you see there. The first numbered column, yes. The CBID assessment, yes, $4.7 million there. That is down about 2% from last year, but that's where we expect to come in at based on what we are seeing. Our overall budget in terms of FY25, we believe will be about $5.3 million based on the spend that we're looking to have. And how we make that up is with some dollars that we use from other entities that do not come from the CBID assessment, but we're able to supplement some of the funding that we need for certain initiatives that I'll speak a little bit more about as I continue through this page. One of the things we're looking to do is to add, to make sure that our team for the Blue Suede Brigade is at over 30 employees, and also we added a couple of positions, like I said earlier, to our clean and green initiatives. We see a need for us to put our hands to more grass cutting and litter pickup and things of that nature, graffiti, helping with that. So we're adding a little bit to that pot, and we were able to level off some of the other expenses to accommodate for that. And so our total ask, our CBID assessment will be 4.7. Our total budget for the operating budget will be 5.3 million, just under 5.3, so 5.293 and 991. Next slide. So how that shakes out in terms of the overall spend and our categories, our focus areas, is that'll be about 46% in safety and hospitality, 21% in beautification, clean and green, 17% in community building, development and diversity, and then 16% in marketing. It looks like when you're looking at FY24 versus 25 in comparison, it looks like it's going down. Okay, it is not. What's happening here is, so the budget for FY24 is 5 point, did I put that backwards? Hold on. 5.1, I put it backwards. So 5.1, and then the budget for FY25 is 5.3. So because there is more spend overall, when you level out the percentages, it ends up looking like it's less, but it's the same spend. So it's $2.4 million that we're spending in the safety and hospitality space. Okay, so the key takeaways for our presentation is we do not fund our organization with city or county tax dollars. We look to augment and enhance the services for the cities for downtown, which means that we're doing things to make downtown cleaner and safer and more welcoming. We add vibrancy again, we reduce blight, and we market and promote downtown so that we can have a very strong core and get people excited and energized about everything that we have to offer in downtown Memphis. And so we're asking for this annual budget to be approved. This is a little bit more about what the CBIT assessment looks like. So it is funded through a special assessment on commercial property. So it's not on residential property, but it's on commercial property within the district. It's 65 cents per $100 assessed value of commercial properties, and it only applies to properties with an appraised value of over $25,000. And so when we come back before you, it will be June the 5th. Our process is a little bit different from city divisions. We will be presenting a resolution that you would then approve, and then move it to June 5th is when you would have your first reading, and then, the second approval of the minutes would happen before the end of the fiscal year. Any questions for me?
Thank you very much. I guess, it looks like my taxes are going to go up. My assessment's going to go up. I think just looking at this, what's going on downtown is impressive. I saw we had 75,000 people that are down there during the day. What was it like when you had all the buildings full downtown? What was the number of people down there 20 years ago, 15 years ago? Do you have any idea of where this compares, so we can see a graph that can show, when Goldsmith was there? That's how all my old people describe it. When Goldsmith used to be there.
If we go back to, we go up. Okay. So this shows 1990 up through what we are projecting for to 2025. You can see the dip that happened somewhere around. There's a dip that happened in 2000, and then we leveled off between 2010 and 2020. It looks like
yes, I think that
a dip there.
Goldsmith was gone in 1990. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm thinking what we're looking is like 1980, 1970, 1960.
Oh yes.
Yes, so I'd like to see what that if you have that somewhere, it would be interesting, because I think you guys are going to be heading toward those numbers. I mean, if you're in downtown, the feel downtown is great. The construction, I think, or the construction on the roads are, that's a sign that things are happening, but that's also probably not the prettiest stuff going on. So we just need to make sure that once the construction is done, the stuff's moved. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Well, Shandell, it's good to see you. Thank you, Chairman. But you're
Very
sitting
good
on
to
the other
see you.
side, and I'm impressed with a couple of things that I've heard, and I just want to ask a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Mental health is one of my babies, and thank you for having a team, and they know how to handle that type of behavior as far as de-escalation. So that was very impressed to see what's happening, and we see that we're happening in our city. And there's another. I'm gonna go to your chart here, your budget overview FY25.
Budget overview?
Mm-hmm. You don't have a page number, so.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, that's okay. Thank you for actually having your variances there. I haven't seen this in anyone's presentation that has presented, especially your budget, your actual, your variances, because all that goes hand in hand in math when you look at your math.
Yes,
and so
ma'am.
thank you. This is really good information. I like the layout. I did do the math, and your numbers are right. And very impressed. What I would like to, the other question you answered, so I'm going to erase that one, because you said, why does it look like it's decreasing? And, and so you gave a good explanation why the 46% where safety and hospitality was, and it was 48 in FY24, and it looks like it dropped in FY26. What I do want to ask you is, you said something about your commercial properties. How many are down there that, let me think about how I want to access.
I would say there are probably very few commercial properties less than $25,000 in her district.
Well, thank you, Chairman.
That was your question, right? How many?
Well, some of it.
Okay, good.
Okay. You just took the question. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to know if that's what you're asking.
We are just thinking alike. All right, good. Well, he just
Energy, see?
Oh yeah, you know he
when
sits here
you've
and
been
shares
working
gum,
right
and
next
he
to each
sits
other,
here and
yes.
share all his gum with me. So
That's right. Your
yeah.
neighbor.
We're neighbors. So thank you, and that was answered. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Chairman. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.